Hello, and welcome to the back room, where we talk about politics across the country, around the state, and right here in the Bronx. I'm your host, Lisa Schiffren. I'm a Republican speechwriter.
David Eisenbach, presidential historian.
Tonight we're going to start with around the state. Kathy Hochul, our governor, our very unpopular, much unloved governor, is running for re-election this fall. And she got lucky this week. What happened, David?
She got lucky. First, for context, I mean, this is a governor whose approval ratings are kind of abysmal. Favorable rating of about 42%, unfavorable at 45%. 55% of New Yorkers say that she should not be reelected. But it doesn't matter in New York State politics because her challenger, Antonio Delgado, he was never able to catch fire. He only had $1 million in the bank. He didn't win the endorsement of the Working Families Party, and so he dropped out. So she has no real challenger. And from the Republican side, it doesn't look much better.
No, it's true. The Republican candidate is Bruce Blakeman. A few months ago, Elise Stefanik, the congresswoman from upstate New York, was running, and she was a real dynamo. She's so smart and such a good arguer, and she's magnetic and gets great media coverage. But Trump wouldn't endorse her, and so she kind of said, "You'll excuse me," she said, "F you," and she said, "I'm not going to run." So she's not running. Bruce Blakeman is 70 years old. He's the Nassau County executive on Long Island. He's done a very good job. He's a good Republican. He's smart. He's effective. He's a conservative on the economy. He's good on the issues, but he's not catching fire. He's not so mediagenic. I see his ads on Facebook. I don't know where else they run.
He just feels like a sacrificial lamb that's just going out.
No,
he's a sacrificial lamb. None of the heavy
hitters. He's not a sacrificial lamb. He wanted this more than anything.
Well, I'm sure he wanted it more than anything, but none of the heavy hitters in the Republican Party, such that it is in New York State, will stick their necks out. Hochul is just going to waltz into it. She's got the money. She's got the endorsements. Mondami endorsed her. AOC endorsed her. She's got no primary challenger now. She's going to have all that cash that she would have wound up spending on a primary to just plow in to a general election.
No, it's disastrous because she is a terrible, terrible governor.
And she's unpopular. I mean, that's the crazy thing. It's not like she's like really, really popular. And so this coronation that we're about to watch for the next year would make sense. No, she's very unpopular. And yet she has, well, she's really good at intimidation.
Well, no, I mean, it's like this across the country in blue states. Gavin Newsom done a terrible job in California. California, the out-migration is huge. The in-migration is tiny. Nobody likes him, and they all vote for him. Pritzker in Illinois, another one who nobody likes him. He's made this into a sanctuary state. That's his big issue. He's been terrible on taxes, and yet he's very safe in his seat.
Yeah, well, what we're dealing with is corporate Democrats. All they have to say is Trump, 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 I'm anti-Trump. They don't actually have to present something that would make any progressive change. And that's why I was hoping that Antonio Delgado's candidacy running to the left of Hochul would actually gain momentum. I thought that he could build off of what Mondami did in New York City, but it just never came to fruition. He never collected the money. I was surprised that he never got, he has only like $1 million.
Well, don't you think that's because running to the left of this left-wing governor, she doesn't talk as if she's left-wing. She talks as if she's moderate, but she legislates as if she's left-wing.
Well, from your perspective, from those of us on the left, we see her as another corporate Democrat who's interested in big real estate giveaways. She's very, very good at intimidating. She locked down the endorsements. Very few. I think there were just a couple of state senators that endorsed Delgado. Everybody else either sort of delayed, like Mondami, until he had to make a choice, along with AOC.
What I see her doing is picking fights with Trump, which gets her points.
Gets her the points. And then backtracking on any sort of progressive legislation, any sort of attempt to actually deal with the problem of affordability. She can talk about it, but actually dealing with it, that's not what her corporate and her big money donors want.
You know, speaking of left-wing candidates who are doing badly, let's talk about the mayor. Mondami has had the worst introduction I've ever seen. He got this snowstorm, and he screwed it up so badly that 3 weeks later it's still an issue.
Yeah, well, look, you can't control the weather. Even the mayor of the city of New York can't do that.
No, but you can send out those snowplows a little more seriously.
And if you don't nail it, right, there's a pile-on effect. And this isn't the first time a mayor has gotten buried by the snow.
That's right.
This is a long-time New York City tradition. If you don't clear those streets, New York City comes out with its knives
Because
out.
this is a city where people walk on the streets.
Yeah, and it's kind of expected, and it is a signpost of your management capability.
No, well, I think that's right.
So
General
he
competency.
was just in the job, and the people, that around him, they're still getting their sea legs, and
leaving the
so
garbage on the
ball.
streets is disgusting, because we do have this problem with rats in the city, and bringing out the rats in the middle of winter is astonishing.
And this is just anecdotal evidence. What I'm seeing on the streets are dirtier. The homelessness is worse since Adams.
Well, the homelessness is the other big thing that he's done. 17, maybe 18 people have died because he has initiated this policy where he won't let the New York City service departments that are in charge of the homeless bring them in against their will to heated shelters when it's 0 degrees out, when it's below freezing. So 17 people have died living on the streets, and he won't let anybody make it happen that somebody gets inside to warmth.
Right, and this is where, the problem of ideology when you actually apply it, right? I get, the theory behind it, but it's not just freezing weather. We're talking single-digit weather, right? We're being out on that street.
It's a death sentence.
It's a death sentence. So that's where you got to get aggressive, and yeah, you got these ideological principles, but as you have people dying, you're going to get the blame, right?
Well, he seems to believe that being mentally ill is a pass for everything. We had this incident last week where a mentally ill person, who nobody would argue is mentally ill, he's mentally ill, attacked a police officer with a knife. The police officer ultimately brought out a gun and wounded him. Didn't shoot to kill, shot to wound. And Mondami comes out and explains to the city that he would be going to visit the mentally ill guy who started the incident. And really, this person, it's not his fault. And in fact, he shouldn't have to cope with police officers who are armed. He should actually have the benefit of a social worker helping him restrain himself, which is not possible.
Right.
This is absurd.
And the majority of the people who voted for Mondami were focused on the affordability angle, not on we need to pull back on homelessness in terms of getting them out of the subways and litter on the streets and ease up on violent
living
criminals.
on the streets. I mean, that has always been something where I thought New York did a much better job than, say, California or Oregon or Washington, where New York took people off the streets because you don't want a city where people are literally living in tents or in sleeping bags.
Or living in the subway.
Right.
And we saw that really explode under Bill de Blasio. Adams, to his credit, did a good job of reining that back in.
Yes, he
but
did.
I feel as though it's going back to the Bill de Blasio days, and no New Yorker wants that. Right? And that's just the freezing deaths are just one of the problems. Mondami did not show up to the Archbishop's installment, the new Archbishop, and I think that was a disaster.
That is a disaster because a third of New York City is Catholic. And Catholics take this very seriously, as they should. And Mandami is a Muslim, which he's made a very big deal about, but he has to show some respect for the other religions here in this city, the religions that preceded Islam in New York City. To not show up for the investiture at St. Patrick's Cathedral of an archbishop is unthinkable.
And this is a long-standing tradition. In 1939, Fiorello LaGuardia went to Cardinal Spellman's installment. Every mayor has been there ever since, regardless of whether they're Catholic or Jews. Ed Koch, Mike Bloomberg, they all went to the installment of the Archbishop because it's a sign of unity. This is an important institution in New York. You might not agree with all the positions that the Catholic Church has, but it doesn't matter. You are New York City's mayor. This is an important office within this important institution in New York City, and Mandami has to signal the idea that
of respect, just basic respect.
Respect, and I'm not what they said I was going to be. I am not some
an Islamist.
Sort of,
I'm not an Islamist, which I am.
Okay, but at least if you're smart politically, you got to signal that you are not the boogeyman that you were made out to be during the campaign, and that you do have respect for this. And there's nothing.
It's also the case that Catholics in New York run a bunch of institutions that help the homeless, that help the poor,
that educate a lot of New York City kids who are not Catholic.
That's right. A lot of black kids go to Catholic schools,
and a lot of Muslim kids go to Catholic schools because they don't like what's going on in the public schools. That is a fact, and that they can get a solid education at an affordable price. No, the Catholic Church does a lot of good for this city in social services and education, no doubt.
So that was a big mistake. And on that note, we're going to a public service announcement. Please stick with us, and we'll be back in a minute. Thanks. Welcome back. So Iran. The last time we spoke, I was certain the president was going to attack Iran one night in the following several days. It's been a month, and Donald Trump has kind of dicked around in a way that is almost unforgivable, unless he's got something coming soon. He has amassed a huge armada in the Persian Gulf and surrounding seas. There are all sorts of ships and helicopters and planes and bombs waiting to attack. But he is negotiating with the Ayatollah and his foreign minister, and in theory, he's negotiating about whether they will give up their nuclear ambitions, which they won't. And if they say they will, they won't. They're just lying. But he has not attacked. This morning, Bibi Netanyahu showed up at the White House to talk to Trump about Iran because he was afraid signals are getting mixed and Trump has maybe diverged from the path they had agreed on. What do you think about that?
Well, Trump doesn't want to destroy the world's economy with an attack on Iran, which would shut down the Strait of Hormuz and then throw over all the oil supply coming out of that key area. That's number one. He cares more about the economy than
there are sanctions on that oil, so there's not much oil coming out, except a little goes to China.
No, they can shut down all the oil coming from all the countries that transport their oil through the Strait of Hormuz, including Kuwait, Bahrain.
Not if you bomb them first.
they have enough missiles to destroy every ship in that area. You're never going to be able to bomb all their missiles and their drones. We're talking about thousands of these things, right? So that's one problem for Trump. He doesn't want to throw off the world's economy. Secondly, when they were threatening a couple of weeks ago, Iran said, any country that allows the United States to use their air bases there is fair game. So we're coming after you all. And then you had all these Arab countries with U.S. bases on them saying, no, we're not allowing.
Right. No, Qatar, which appears to call the shots. I love Trump, but Trump is way too indebted to Qatar and listens to them way too much.
Well, maybe.
Qatar does not have our interests at heart. It is a Hamas supporter. It's a terror supporter elsewhere. It's an absurd little country that has a lot of money that it uses pretty blithely around the United States.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you accept big presents.
No, it is what happens when you accept.
You got to play by their tune. But the big thing is, once the Qataris and others, including Jordan, said you cannot use U.S. military facilities for an attack on Iran, that complicates the attack. Now you've got just one aircraft carrier. And remember, Joe Biden tried to use...
I think there's another one on its way.
Another one well, you got to wait for it to get there because you can't use the land-based aircraft and you can't do the job with one aircraft. Joe Biden tried to defeat the Houthis with one aircraft. It didn't work. Right? All they got to do, the Iranians, just like with the Houthis, is keep firing. Eventually, the aircraft carrier runs out of missiles. And in the case of the Iranians, there's a real danger that aircraft carrier could get sunk because no matter how good your air defenses are on that ship, if you can just overwhelm them with a drone swarm, you could lose an aircraft carrier.
I think you are way overstating the capacity and the strength of Iran. I think Iran is weak at this point.
I'm not the one who's overstating this. This is a report from the Defense Department.
It's on the verge of collapsing.
Oh, yeah, that's what you said last time we spoke, about a month ago. It's on the verge of collapsing. These street protests are going to overthrow the Ayatollah.
No, it requires...
And I told you, you're fantasizing. This is neocon fantasy world.
It requires assistance from the United States, which did not occur.
To do what? To bomb them into democracy? Is that the plan? It's never worked in the history of mankind, bombing people into democracy.
I think you can use special forces.
Special forces to do what?
To take out the Ayatollah, who the entire country, in fact, the entire world would benefit from a change in regime in Iran.
Again,
all of the terror that we've had to put up with for 50 years comes straight out of Tehran.
As if this is all just coming from this one old man, and all you got to do is get rid of the Ayatollah, and it's going to be unicorns and rainbows in Iran from here on out.
No, it's not going to be unicorns and rainbows, but it will be a transition to something that is livable.
How? Unless you put boots on the ground, that government is not going to change. It's going to be very similar to what happened with Venezuela. Trump did his cartwheels about how they took out the evil dictator, right? And what happened? Absolutely nothing. It's the same regime in Venezuela as it was before.
That regime is now dancing to a different tune. Marco Rubio is calling the tune.
Marco Rubio's not calling the tune. That regime now can actually sell its oil, prop up everything that existed before. They're making way more money. Didn't do a damn thing about the alleged drugs.
The economy of Venezuela will flourish, and there will be a transition to an election. There will be something like democracy. It won't be perfect.
On the basis
it won't be perfect.
Of what? Right? All these oil kingdoms, none of them have democracies. Well, any economy that is purely built on oil, like Venezuela, tends to dictatorship. They're going to make more money to prop up their corrupt regime.
Dictatorships go, there are dictatorships that are preferable to communist dictatorships.
You didn't change the ideology in Venezuela. You just took out the front man.
I think that will happen.
Okay. Again, this is the neocon fantasy that all you need is a strong president to go in there and get rid of the bad guy and it solves all the problems. Big, big change. And that same neocon fantasy that was delusional in Iraq is now pushing us to a war in Iran.
The Iranians are very, very different than the Iraqis or the Afghans. The Afghans are a primitive tribal culture without any coherence. The Iraqis half and half. The Iranians are,
and these are the people who are going to go into a Middle Eastern country and reform it, right?
The
People
Iranians,
who talk about Iran and Iraq in these ways,
the
right?
Iranians,
and all you got to do is get rid of the evil dictator, the Ayatollah, as if there isn't a succession plan, as if there isn't the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, as if there aren't the security services and the military.
No, you take out the Revolutionary Guard.
How are you going to take them out? They are integral to the entire economy and security apparatus. By killing one man, the Ayatollah, even Donald Trump isn't delusional enough to believe this.
I think you kill a bunch of the Revolutionary Guard.
And for every one you kill, there are going to be 10 right behind them. I mean, this is not going to work.
At a certain point, they switch sides because they see that their side has lost.
When in the history of the world has any country been bombed into submission and then surrendered without putting boots on the ground? When has that ever happened, Lisa?
I myself am not opposed to boots on the ground.
Well, I guarantee you Donald Trump is.
Yeah,
I guarantee you the vast majority of the American public is.
I know Donald Trump
There's no more Middle Eastern wars in this country. We can't pull it off. We are not where we were 20 years ago. Even if we tried, we would fail. Secondly, Iran is way more powerful than Iraq and Saddam Hussein.
You know, it seems to me that when a government takes out 36,000 of its people, kills in cold blood 36,000 people.
Maybe those numbers are true. Maybe they're not.
No, those numbers seem to be pretty true.
Those numbers come from human rights organizations based in Washington, D.C., funded by intelligence agencies.
Those numbers come from Iran.
They're a joke, right? And what happened? We did nothing. We did nothing because regardless of the human rights
So you're in favor of keeping the Ayatollah in power?
I'm in favor of not getting into another Middle Eastern war, which is going to make the situation worse, not only for us, but for the people of Iran. It's going to be chaos if you ever got rid of that government, and you never could. Where are we going to put these troops? Where are we going to land these troops? Because the only way to place to land them is in the south of Tehran. South of Iran. To get to Tehran, you got to cross the entire country, a very mountainous country. Our troops would be slaughtered along the way. And why are we doing this? Who wants us to go to war? Well, he's begging Donald Trump right now. Bibi Netanyahu wants us to get into another Middle Eastern war. Trump has been stiff-arming him for weeks, and I think he's going to keep on stiff-arming him.
Okay.
I hope.
Well, I hope.
You want us to get into another Middle Eastern war. Clearly, you don't have a kid in the military. You don't have any skin in the game. And that's the problem with these neocons. They don't care about your kid dying over there on the other side of the world as long as they get their fantasies and their dreams implemented.
So we're in favor of the Ayatollahs.
Okay, yeah. That's that reductive conversation. Since you're no longer, you're not willing to start a war, you must be in favor of the regime that's in place. Come on, Lisa. No one buys that.
I think no one buys your constant withdrawal from any attempt to actually change things
it's
in the world.
It's called learning lessons of history.
Okay,
and I know it didn't end well in Iraq, so why would it end well in Iran? And it's a way more difficult fight.
Let's move to domestic policy. This morning in Congress, there were hearings where the Democrats went after the Department of Homeland Security, the officials at the top of Homeland Security. They want to defund ICE. They want to reform ICE and get rid of ICE. They are totally upset about the idea that you would ever want to get rid of illegal immigrants who came into this country illegally, many of whom are criminals, some of whom are not, some of whom are merely illegal, but illegal is illegal. So the Democrats are going after Homeland Security. They're not going to fund Homeland Security. ICE itself is funded through 2029, so ICE will continue at its pace. But what do you think about that?
I think it's a good issue for them. It plays to the base. And quite frankly, how the Trump administration has handled this whole ICE business in Minnesota has been a disaster. The shooting of Americans, you've got this ICE leader marching around like he's some sort of SS Himmler with this weird coat on.
Which
this
guy is this?
1930s.
Which
the
guy?
guy with the kind of Nazi-like haircut.
Bavino?
Who resigned because he was such a PR disaster.
He didn't resign. He left the area.
He got pushed out, is what he got, because he's a PR disaster. Because even the Trump administration realized, man, this is bad. We are antagonizing even people who supported us, right? That Joe
I think that's
Rogan,
a function of
Tim Dillon wing of Trump supporters who said, yes, we need ICE to come in, take care of the criminal elements, take care of the gangs, take care of the sex traffickers. But you can't be shooting American citizens who are protesting on the streets.
You know, those are highly trained American citizens who are paid to protest and who have been pushed to do this, to create, pushed by, among others, Tim Walz, the governor, and Jacob Frey, the mayor of Minneapolis. They've created this this conflict where there's no need for a conflict. You let ICE do its job. You don't antagonize them. You don't harass them constantly.
You don't shoot a mother on a suburban street.
America
saw that and was like, wait a minute here. This is not
She
what
rammed
we
her car,
wanted.
as you acknowledged last time we spoke. She rammed her car into the officer.
That is not what I acknowledged. I acknowledged that this guy was an idiot for walking directly in front of this car. No one should ever walk in directly in front of a running car. You had a woman who was panicked behind the wheel, right? She was in drive. She wasn't in park, right? And so stuff happened. Now, I'm not saying that it wasn't a complicated situation.
She had been harassing him for
She was
an
harassing
hour.
him. He was That is not how the American public read that situation. They saw a cop or this guy who's like an ICE cop, but honestly, most cops would never have handled it that aggressively. They have been trained in de-escalation. They looked at that situation, they say, no, this is not what we want. This is not what we voted for. We wanted ICE to be brought in to actually rescue a lot of immigrant communities from the criminal activity that was going on in there.
And ICE is doing that, except if you harass them in the streets.
Where are they doing this?
Among other places,
that should be the story, not shooting Americans on the streets
They took out
of America.
3,000 murderers, rapists, assault conveyors in Minneapolis, 3,000 people who had created huge crimes
Let me ask
across
you, Lisa,
the country.
Why is that not the story? Because of these the shootings that have happened, because of the kind of hyper macho aggressiveness.
No, it's not the story because the liberal media doesn't allow it to be the story.
Because the Trump administration did not do the smart move, which was work with local police departments. They know the neighborhoods. They know the gangs.
Hang on, time out. The reason they didn't work with the local police department in Minneapolis is because the mayor forbade the local police department from working with ICE.
Then you work with mayors who will work with you. You don't try to jam it down people's throats. You work. Adams could have been somebody to work with. There are other mayors that would have welcomed the support.
And that's what's happening now.
With them, right? You don't go to places where they knowingly knew they were picking a fight. They wanted to shame the Minneapolis. This has been a political disaster for them, and it's a disaster of their own making. They could have actually done something good, which was help solve the problem, like most people who supported Trump wanted. Instead, it's grandstanding, and it's
on
blown
that
up in their
note,
faces.
we're going to say goodnight. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll be back next week. Good night.